Hello everyone and good afternoon. My name's Don Arleth and it's time for your midday report here on TVP World. A tragic school shooting unfolded Tuesday morning in Graz, Austria, claiming the lives of at least 10 people and leaving several more severely injured. Authorities undertook a large-scale operation, including Austrian special forces.
In the morning hours, we received a report that several shots had been heard in a building, specifically in the Burgdreier Schützengasse. Following this, our operation commenced, with the Cobra special unit also deployed to the site. We can currently confirm that the area has been secured. This means there is no further threat to the public. The students are now safe. However, we must currently assume there are multiple fatalities.
Also in France, a teaching assistant has died after being stabbed by a student on Tuesday. The attack occurred at a school in the town of Nogent in the northeast of the country. The assailant has reportedly been detained. President Emmanuel Macron has responded to the tragic event on a post in social media.
While protecting our children, a teaching assistant lost her life, the victim of a senseless wave of violence. We all stand with her family, her loved ones, her colleagues, and the entire educational community. The nation is in mourning, and the government is mobilized to reduce crime.
Russian attacks on Ukraine killed at least 7 people and wounded 34 more over the past 24 hours. The airstrikes primarily targeted Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, and the southern port city of Odesa. Russia used a total of 315 drones in the attacks, including 250 Shaheds and 7 missiles, 2 of which came from North Korea. Ukrainian air defenses managed to shoot down all of the missiles and 213 attack drones. Overnight explosions could be heard across the Ukrainian capital as air defense systems engaged in incoming targets. According to Kyiv's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, the drone struck several parts of the city, marking one of the heaviest attacks since the beginning of the full-scale war. In total, 4 people were wounded in Russian strikes on the Ukrainian capital. Meanwhile, residents of Odesa also endured a very difficult night as Russian drones repeatedly struck the city. According to Odesa's governor, Oleg Kyper, the attack killed 2 people and wounded at least 8 more. A maternity hospital was also hit. However, the staff and patients suffered no injuries. At the same time, Russian forces also struck Dnipropetrovsk, Donetsk, Kharkiv, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions, killing 5 people and injuring a further 22. Woken by explosions, residents of Kyiv are now assessing the damage done to them and their property by an overnight Russian attack. According to residents of the Ukrainian capital, the attack shows what kind of neighbor Russia truly is.
I heard an explosion. First the powerful one, then 3 less loud. There were 5 or 6 explosions altogether. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the air raid siren went off and the Shaheds started coming one by one. There were a lot of hits. One hit accurately right into the apartment. As you can see, the apartment is gone. 3 to be precise. Those are the kind of neighbors we have. They're dogs.
This could be some sort of shrapnel. It's from the Shahed that hit here. I'm a concierge in this building. I found this shrapnel while cleaning up. They are targeting civilians. They are fighting against us, against civilians. They don't fight in the open. Who are they killing? Children, women, and the elderly.
Also, during these most recent Russian attacks on Ukraine, a maternity hospital in Odesa was targeted. Fortunately, no injuries or casualties were reported at the site, but the hospital patients shared their accounts of the terror that they went through, having to seek safety in the facility's shelter.
An air raid alarm sounded, and the maternity hospital staff came and said that we needed to go down to the basement. We sort of got ready, quickly took the baby and went down. And as soon as we went down, reached, where we were still all sitting, there was an explosion. 1, 2, 3. The third was already very loudly audible, and shrapnel flew. We were in the basement, but shrapnel still rained down in the corridor. As soon as we went down and went into the rooms, the waiting rooms, until everything was over, there was an explosion. And we heard a sound as if everything was beginning to crumble, to collapse. We thought that everything was going to collapse there. We have been living through this for 4 years now, and every time we hope that something will happen. Negotiations, some kind of contact will be made, and all this will end. We hope so. That's why we give birth to children. Hope. If we don't have hope, then no one will give birth.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the latest wave of drone and missile attacks on Kyiv and Odesa. In a social media statement, Zelensky wrote that it is vital for the world to respond not with silence, but with concrete action.
Today was one of the largest attacks on Kyiv. Odesa, Dnipro region and Chernihiv region were also targeted. It is vital that the response to this and other similar Russian attacks is not silence from the world, but concrete action. Action from America, which has the power to force Russia into peace. Action from Europe, which has no alternative but to be strong. Action from others around the world who called for diplomacy and an end to the war, and whom Russia has ignored. There must be strong pressure for the sake of peace.
In addition, Ukraine is calling for new sanctions against Russia in the wake of the war's largest air assault on the country's capital. Following the attack, a Ukrainian foreign ministry spokesperson told reporters in Kyiv that Russia's President Vladimir Putin is not planning to halt the war, and only economic and military pressure can stop him.
Sanctions are needed now. Russia did enough and demonstrated enough. 2 empty meetings in Istanbul, unfortunately, and it is their fault. Strikes, sending thousands of soldiers in the direction of Pokrovsk and the Sumy region. Putin demonstrated to the whole world that he does not plan to stop. There are 2 main methods that can force him to stop this aggression: sanctions and other forms of pressure on Moscow, as well as support for Ukraine militarily, economically, and in other areas.
In a surprising shift, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has called for increased pressure on Russia, stating that Moscow only responds to the language of force. Speaking to France's LCI television, Orban emphasized the need for Europe to boost its military power and pursue a long-term strategic agreement with Russia.
I think the only language the Russians understand is the language of force, and Europe must be strong. We must negotiate from a position of strength. Unfortunately, right now, we are weak, and that's why we need the Americans. But Europe must strengthen itself in the long term. There must be a strategic agreement with Russia, but only a strong Europe will be able to achieve that.
Now, Orban's remarks for the French broadcaster marked an unexpected pivot away from his staunchly pro-Russian rhetoric. We asked Gabbor Sherling, an assistant professor of comparative politics at Georgetown University in Qatar, for his take on this change of tone.
What we're witnessing is the typical Viktor Orban, what he calls the peacock dance. So 1 step to the left, 2 steps to the right. He's always trying to maneuver political powers. So he would never want to very openly position himself on the side of Putin. Although that's how he comes across, he also always tries to maintain the possibility of staying inside the European Union, at least as long as he's receiving financial support from the EU. Plus, he's also signaling his intent of kind of acting as the bridge between Brussels and DC. So that's also a part of this statement. When it comes to military and security, these are issues that it's easier for a liberal politician to agree on with the mainstream of the European political center.
NATO soldiers are holding joint live-fire drills in Bulgaria. Troops from Bulgaria, Romania, Italy, and the United States trained together with the aim of bolstering NATO's defense capabilities.
The drills are part of Balkan Sentinel 25, an international tactical live-fire exercise, included in a broader NATO exercise Immediate Response 25. The main aim of the exercise is the coordination between various NATO armies, while also training cyber capabilities and protective measures in scenarios involving chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear threats. The troops also focused on developing compatible communications and strengthening information environments.
In Romania, a big cleanup is underway in the capital of Bucharest after it suffered severe flooding on Monday.
Torrential rain overwhelmed the city's infrastructure, leaving many streets, homes and shopping malls under several centimetres of water, while high winds brought down trees. Authorities reported that wind speeds hit more than 70 kilometres an hour, forcing inbound flights to divert to other airports. A storm forced the temporary suspension of public transport in some parts of the city, though most lines have now been restored. Local media report that the utility company Apanova described the intense rain as a once-in-a-century event.
Moving beyond the continent, Russia is actively expanding operations in Africa, despite its war in Ukraine, according to an investigation by the Associated Press. The news agency has reported that Moscow is using its shadow fleet of aging cargo vessels to ship sophisticated equipment to sub-Saharan conflict zones. Satellite imagery shows howitzers, radio jamming equipment, and other military hardware being moved from the Baltic Sea on a month-long journey to Africa. Russian military involvement in the region was previously overseen by the Wagner Group, formerly led by the late Yevgeny Prigozhin. Experts say that deliveries could strengthen Russia's fledgling Africa Corps as the Kremlin competes with the United States, Europe, and China for greater influence across the continent. As many of its prison spaces currently stand empty, Estonia will open its doors to prisoners from Sweden. The Ministry of Justice plans to house up to 600 Swedish inmates at Tartu prison as part of the new international agreement set to be signed later this month. While the move could still fill Estonia's empty prison cells, it could also bring new security challenges.
This agreement contains a number of exclusions, all based on risk assessments, and what remains are healthy adult men serving long sentences who are not radicalized, not involved in gang-related crime, not assessed as requiring special supervision, and who do not have serious psychiatric needs and no other medical need. These are murders of passion. These are rapists, sex offenders who have done it alone, and these are economic crimes.
If this person poses a threat to Estonia to such an extent that we need to take some other measures, then we can impose a ban on entry into Estonia. It's also true that we regularly exchange information with Sweden and other European countries about the movement of extremists in Europe.
And now to the world of sport, where Poland's national football team is going to play Finland tonight in the World Cup qualifiers. However, there is a catch, and that is the game is overshadowed by the open conflict between Poland's star player Robert Lewandowski and the national team's coach Michał Probierz. FC Barcelona's Robert Lewandowski announced on Sunday his departure from the Polish national team after coach Michał Probierz stripped him of his captaincy after 11 years. Lewandowski had previously withdrawn from recent international fixtures, citing physical and mental fatigue after a demanding season at Barcelona. But Lewandowski showed up for Friday's friendly game against Moldova as a spectator for his teammates Kamil Grosicki's farewell ceremony. On Sunday, the Polish Football Association announced that the coach had appointed a new captain of the Polish team. Shortly afterwards, Lewandowski posted on social media, quote, "I will not play in the national team as long as Probierz is the national team coach," end quote. And that concludes this midday report. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.